All right. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am so glad that you can be here with me today. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here because I am just really passionate about eliminating chronic disease from the face of the planet. And the number one cause of mortality in the United States and in the world actually is heart disease. So thank you for being here. I am just really excited. Thank you for your time. And my commitment is that this time will be so valuable to you. You're going to get a ton of wonderful tips and ideas and strategies to help you in terms of your health. And I'm really, really excited to be able to spend this time with you. So I just want to start off. My name is Ruben J. Guzman. And so I and let me start out with a story. I want to share with you my first introduction to heart disease. So, what happened for me was that I was working at the Los Robles Regional Medical Center right out of college, and I was working in the lab, and I became a pathologist assistant shortly after a few months of working, and I did everything in the lab. So I was a lab monkey, and I did everything. And so I learned chemistry, serology, hematology, embryology. And then I started working as a pathologist assistant, looking at every surgical specimen that came out of the operating room every day and preparing it for examination by the pathologist. But then I also got to assist in doing autopsies. So that was quite an experience. And most of the autopsies that we did there were on people who had died from complications of chronic disease. So, heart disease, aneurysms, cancer, diabetes complications, you name it, all kinds of things that we got to see. Now, by the way, somebody was asking me this, so when they list COVID as the cause of death, is that the only thing that caused their death? And the answer would be no. Okay, the answer would be no. So the thing is, the way we do it, and when it comes to filling out the death certificate, is that we basically figure out what was the major driver, what drove them to their death. So these days, what's happening is because COVID's an infectious disease, people get the COVID and it's the driver, it drives them to have the ensuing cascade of complications and they end up dying. So it turns out that I think it's something like 98%, something like that, or 96%. 96% of the deaths due to COVID are with underlying chronic disease conditions, including heart disease. And it's a huge difference. So the thing is, hardly anyone dies from just COVID. All right. So the thing is, most of the time they're dying from the COVID as driving the complications of heart disease and pneumonia and everything else that happens. So that's how it works. So I got to do autopsies. And and one of the things that we had to do was dissect different parts of the body. And so what Dr. Glover trained me to do, he was the senior pathologist. And so I remember this so vividly that there was a case of heart failure. And Dr. Glover said, I want you to dissect the aorta. So the aorta is the major pipe that comes off the heart that feeds blood to the rest of the body. So it's the huge pipe. All right. So it's the largest blood vessel. So this person had a heart, it had heart failure, all kinds of coronary artery disease. So as I started to dissect the aorta, going from the kidneys area all the way up, just to take a look inside. And I punched a hole in and I took my surgical scissors. As I started to dissect the aorta, it was, and it sounded like my scissors were breaking through candle wax that had hardened, and it had that consistency. That was atherosclerosis of the aorta. It was big. It was a lot. And it was like, wow. And I said, Dr. Glover, what's that? I said, oh, those are your cheeseburgers there.
Mm.
I stopped eating cheeseburgers. And then he said, go ahead and dissect the carotid artery. So that carotid artery is the major artery that feeds the brain, okay, coming up from the heart. So off the aorta, the carotid artery, one of the major arteries. So I went in there and I started dissecting. Same thing. Dr. Glover, what's that? Oh, those are your hot dogs there. When I stopped eating hot dogs. So I started to see atherosclerosis up front and personal. So that was my first experience looking at it because I got to see a lot of it. And everybody who died from complications of chronic disease, I had a very interesting experience because every single person who died in the autopsies, I had to take their intestinal tract out of their body cavity into the deep wash basin, take my surgical scissors and split it all open and wash it out by hand. Horrible, horrible smell. Just so you know, ugh, nasty. And if you weren't ready for it, it would knock you on your butt. So I did this with every single person. And what was interesting is that the intestinal tract for every single person with a chronic disease mortality, their intestinal tracts all look the same. They all look the same. They were wiped out. The folds that are supposed to be there, all these folds, there's supposed to be lots of wrinkling in a normal, healthy intestinal tract. That was flattened out. And there was this sticky mucoid plaque kind of thing that was sticking on the inside. It was nasty, very, very nasty. So that was my first introduction to heart disease and cardiovascular disease. My second introduction to cardiovascular disease was me. So I'm in my second year of medical school at UC Davis School of Medicine and studying the pathology of the heart. Now, the way it was at UC Davis is that we had exams every single Monday, every single Monday, every single Monday. So our weekends were spent, you can imagine, studying. That's all we did. So here it was Sunday morning, 2 a.m., and I'm studying cardiac pathology, and I'm studying about hypertension. And just for kicks, I decided to check my blood pressure. So I checked my blood pressure. Now it's 2 a.m. in the morning. I'm in my lazy boy reclining chair. Check my blood pressure, 170 over 110. There must be something wrong. Wait a minute. I checked my blood pressure again. 170 over 110. Oh, this isn't good. I waited a few minutes, did some deep breathing, checked my blood pressure again. 170 over 110. Oh my God, I got issues. Now, mind you, I was healthy and fit, so I seemed. I was able to run up and down a basketball court, no problem. I could do that for an hour, hour and a half, no problem. So what was going on? So that led me to do some personal research into understanding the nature of how hypertension can actually be triggered by a lot of different factors, including stress. And I realized that I was what we call now a hot reactor. So I started to learn about stress and the relationship to my heart and hypertension as well. So it made a huge, huge difference. So I reversed that. So I'm very happy with that. So that's just the beginning. I've got more stories. They're going to come on board. All right. So as we go through, so let me get started with our PowerPoint. Thank you for being here. So by the way, the chat window, I'm going to make that available. Okay, let's see. Where's the chat window? I don't see the chat. Oh, there it is. There's the chat window. So if you are new to being here, if you've never been with me before, if you've never been in one of my seminars, please type in new in your chat window. I just want to welcome you. Thank you for being here. It's just really great to have you here. So please type in new in the chat window. All right. Tessie, thank you for being here. Laura, thank you for being here. I'm so excited when I have new people. Judy, wonderful. Thanks for being here. It's so awesome. Stuart, Aram, all right, great. Awesome. Outstanding. I'm so excited. So excited. All right. So really, thank you for being here. So I'm going to really present some good information for all of you. So now let me switch over to my PowerPoint because I've got lots of great stuff for us today. So let me see here. Let me do a couple of real quick little changes. I've learned the tricks of the trade here. So give me one moment. So I just got to switch from one monitor to another. And then click, click, click. And I do a few things here. And then back to this. And here we go. All right then. Okay, so we're ready to go. So my name, Ruben J. Guzman, MPH does not stand for the speed that I drive my car. All right, so it stands for Masters in Public Health, and I got that degree from UCLA back in 1988. And I was so excited when I got my degree. It was just wonderful. I just loved it. And I had a very important decision to make. Do I or do I not go back to medical school at UC Davis School of Medicine to complete my training to become a physician? I'd spent 3 years at UC Davis School of Medicine, and I was doing independent research that led me into the field of public health. So my advisor said, take a break from medical school, go do your master's, and then you have the option to come back and finish. So I realized something very important for myself when I finished my master's, that I was committed passionately to promoting health and preventing disease, and I was no longer committed to treating disease. So I made a bold decision to not go back to medical school. I just couldn't live with myself. So I decided to not go back to medical school and to study and pursue my own independent study in the area of lifestyle medicine. But there was nothing called lifestyle medicine back then. It didn't exist. I was just ahead of my time. So I went into healthcare administration, did that for over a dozen years, started doing consulting. I continued to do seminars and teaching people about health. And then in 2016, I went to a healthcare conference on nutrition. And at that conference, they announced that there is a new branch of the American Medical Association. There was a talk on this on the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. What? This is really a branch of the American College of the American Medical Association? I was so thrilled. So I went to this website and I found out that there's this new branch of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. Lo and behold, it's amazing. An evidence-based approach to prevent, reverse, and treat chronic disease using lifestyle measures as opposed to medications. And guess what? We can do a better job with lifestyle than medications could ever do. And it makes sense completely. So the major areas of lifestyle medicine: nutrition, physical activity, emotional well-being and stress management, alcohol and tobacco reduction, healthy relationships, hydration, and sleep, and a whole lot more. But this is the major pillars. And it's so exciting. So I went to my first lifestyle medicine conference in October 2017. I thought I'd gone to heaven. It was amazing. Over 1,200 health professionals from 38 different countries, MDs, PhDs, health professionals from all over. It was amazing. Oh, it was incredible. I was so thrilled and delighted. And they announced the opening of a board certification examination for physicians, either MDs or DOs, but also for professionals, for PhDs, and those with a master's in a health-related field. That's me. I signed up. I studied for a year, went to my second lifestyle medicine conference in October 2018 in Indianapolis. After the conference, took my exam and I passed my board exam. So I'm one of only about 500 board certified lifestyle medicine physicians and professionals in the entire United States. It's extraordinary. And we're growing. We're growing, and it's really exciting. So we are passionate about being able to eliminate chronic disease from the face of the planet using lifestyle measures. And we know we can do a better job. So I get to live into this quote that Thomas Edison said well over 100 years ago, that the doctor of the future will give no medicine, but will instruct his patient in the care of the human frame, in diet, and in the cause and prevention of disease. And doesn't that make sense? And he said this over 100 years ago. So this is what lifestyle medicine is all about. I couldn't be more proud, and it's so exciting. And I also want to let you know that I do these seminars for free because I believe in the power of paying it forward. And I have absolutely no conflicts of interest whatsoever. No products, no gimmicks, no scams, nothing. All right. I'm a teacher. I love to teach. I've got 4 boys, all right, ages 34, 29, 22, and 20. And I am passionate about making the world a better place for them, their children, their grandchildren. And I think it's important for all of us as adults to leave a legacy on this planet and make the world a better place than what we found it in. And that's important to me. So that's why I do this. I do this for free because you know what? There's so many people that we need to actually empower with this information. It really is important, really is. So I believe that Virgil had it correct when he said this over 2,000 years ago, that the greatest wealth that any of us can have is truly our health. And I couldn't agree more. So there's lots that I'm going to cover with you today. I've got so much good information. I've got new information too. So those of you who have been regulars, hold on to your horses. We're going to go in for a better ride than ever because I've got better stuff, new stuff, always do. So I'm always upgrading. I'm always learning. And by the way, that's my promise to you, to all of you, is that if you come to any one of my webinars, I always do the work to upgrade the latest information I can find, the best, most important information I can ever find. That is my commitment. Dr. Glover taught me that 50% of everything I would learn in medical school would be outdated by the time I finished medical school, and that the other half would be outdated shortly thereafter. So I've always been a student, and I'm always a student. I'm always learning. I'm always growing. So that's what I commit to. So I'm going to share with you lots of information today. Some of the most updated statistics and epidemiology about heart disease. So you can see that pattern, what's going on. We now have a much better understanding of what actually causes heart disease and especially heart attacks. And we're going to look at the mechanism from even at the cellular level. I'm going to share with you what's going on there. And some of the major culprits, but especially the number one culprit, we're going to dive into that so that you understand that. And then you'll get so, you're going to get so, you're going to get so depressed when I first share this part of this information with you. Okay, I got news for you. It's going to get better. So hang in with me. Hang with me. And then I'm going to teach you about the foods that actually promote health. And it's extraordinary. I'm going to share with you research that has been shown to absolutely reverse your heart disease and actually improve your risk of having heart disease and decrease the risk by 99+%. So it's really exciting research. And then we'll share with you at the end about how you can make the rest of your life the best of your life, because I want everybody here to be successful in making lifestyle changes. So we've got lots to go through. Take notes as you want to. Here's what I want to also let you know. I am going to send you all a follow-up email from today. It'll include a link to the recording of this webinar. You'll also get a link to all the slides that I use in my presentation. So don't worry about taking copious notes. And then you're going to get all the resources I can possibly give you. It's a lot. And I used to be a university professor, so I love giving homework. So I can't help myself. Okay. So the thing is, and then you'll get information about everything that I provide. So if you're interested in anything that I provide, you can find out and you can check that out for yourself. So that's what I'll be sending you, lots of good information. Now, I have lots to share with you. And I also want to let you know I have lots of teachers. I am a student, always have been, always will be. And one of my teachers has some words of wisdom to impart to you before we get started. So I'll try to invoke his spirit here right now. You must unlearn what you have learned. So I'm hoping you're willing to listen to the wisdom of Yoda and have an open mind. And really, It's about being able to unlearn, because a lot of us have been brainwashed by the media, by the newspapers, by erroneous material, from old outdated material, to thinking a particular way. And we think we know, but really we don't. So it's an open invitation to really unlearn what you have learned. So let's look at some of the statistics. So what we see right now, 20% of heart attacks that are silent. Nobody even knows that. They don't even know what's going on. It's the number one leading cause of death for men and for women in the United States. 18.2 million Americans aged 20 and older have coronary heart disease. And you know what? There's a lot of people under the age of 20 that also have coronary heart disease. We start seeing the fatty streaks in the blood vessels as early as age 10. Whew. 647,000 Americans who die from heart disease each year, and 80% is considered preventable. We think probably in lifestyle medicine, it could be even more that's preventable. And there's one more statistic I'll add to this group, that about 40% of all heart attacks, the first symptom is sudden death. That's pretty shocking as well. All right, so those are some of the statistics. By the way, we're just around the corner from Christmas and New Year's. And I want you to know something, because this is why I timed this webinar specifically for now, because Christmas Eve happens to be the worst day of the year for heart attacks, with the risk rising nearly 40%. And that most heart attacks hit around 10 p.m. that day. Be on the lookout. By the way, the reason why the sirens are going off on Christmas Eve, that's why. That's why. So this is analyzing the timing of 283,000 heart attacks, according to the Swedish study that was published in the British Medical Journal. All right. So, and it, by the way, it does happen. I have friends that are firefighters. This absolutely happens. I have another friend that's an emergency room doctor. They know it. They staff the ER because they know this is going to happen. In fact, we have the data. This is from the American Heart Association. All right. And what we show is that coronary deaths by day for November, December, and January over the course of 12 years. And we're going right into that season right now. Right now, here's Christmas right here in the arrow where it starts to hit the big peak. Notice Christmas through New Year's and shortly thereafter, that's the biggest peak of coronary deaths. So when we look at the total in the United States, heart disease, cancer, and stroke account for over 50% of all the deaths in this country. And yet we're spending so much money. And 86% of our nation's healthcare costs are spent treating people with chronic diseases. 70% of all Americans are overweight or obese, which puts them at much higher risk for coronary vascular disease, cardiovascular disease. 70 million Americans right now have hypertension with elevated risk for stroke and heart attack. 100 million Americans are projected to be diabetic. That doesn't go well with cardiovascular disease either. And 130 million, that's 40% of the American population right now, that has chronic disease. That's shocking. That's shocking. Now, if we look at the actual mortality statistics, this is from the Centers for Disease Control. And what we see is that heart disease and cancer still number one and number two. This is 2015, 2016. And when we look, there's one cause of death that's actually not listed here, just so you know. Johns Hopkins actually did the research, and they showed that the third leading cause of death, and it's pretty scary, it's medical error. I can attest to this because I was a hospital administrator for Kaiser Hospital in South Sacramento for several years. And one of my departments that I actually managed was the Department of Risk Management. So we actually reviewed cases every single month where there were errors that could put the hospital at risk for litigation. So this definitely does happen. Now, the chart I just showed you has been updated just to show you. Now, they have this with all causes at the top. So it's not, this doesn't look quite the same as the previous one, but still heart disease and cancer for 2017, 2018, still 1 and 2. Strokes are down here, but you know, it's still happening. By the way, the thing that I want to show you on this, and I'm going to point this out, and that is that Alzheimer's has increased even more in these 2 years than it had from the previous years. Next week's webinar is on Alzheimer's. Don't miss out on that one. Don't miss out. We call that diabetes type 3. All right. So I'm going to be talking about Alzheimer's next week. So be sure to be on that, on board with that. Now, I want you to also look at this year in relationship to COVID. This just came out last week in the New York Times, and they looked at the data. Total United States deaths above normal. So you have deaths from other causes down here at the bottom. And then in the gray, you have all the deaths from COVID that was the major driver. So this year is particularly deadly, and it's rather devastating. So and part of this is heart disease. We show in the data that about people with underlying conditions that contract COVID are anywhere from 8 to 14 times more likely to have complications and mortality. So that's one of the things that we see. So a lot of these deaths are related to heart disease as well. In addition, in that article, what we've seen in the data is that deaths attributed to other causes above normal in 2020. This is really, as a healthcare professional, I'm looking at this, I'm going, we've got issues. All right, diabetes, 15% above normal, Alzheimer's, 12% above normal, high blood pressure, 11% above normal, pneumonia, flu, 11%, coronary heart disease, 6%, stroke, 5%, sepsis, 4%. So we've got some serious issues here with a lot more deaths above the normal than we would expect. It's been a horrible year in terms of healthcare. It really has. And I have friends that are physicians and nurses and nurse practitioners. So this is really problematic. When I was doing my research, one of the things that I looked at is there a geographical pattern of chronic disease in the United States? I had read a book called The China Study, which really looked at the geography and the geographical differences in chronic disease in China. And we see that actually is the case in the United States. So when it comes to mortality due to heart disease in the United States, this is the graph by county. All right. And what we show is that the highest concentration of mortality due to heart disease is in this portion of the country, the southeast portion of the United States. All right. Well, how about the other chronic diseases? So let's look at cancer, which is number 2. All right. Well, we see again, it's still the same geographic area. So again, the southeast portion of the United States, there are pockets everywhere, but this is the area that has the highest concentration of mortality. What about strokes? That's a cardiovascular disease related condition. Whew, this one shocked me. All right, so this is the graph of stroke mortality in the United States. Again, it's the southeast portion of the United States. In fact, we even have how this correlates with mortality due to COVID. And what we're showing is this, where people are more at risk for severe COVID-19 illness. No kidding, they've got underlying heart disease, and that's a major issue in many other conditions. When we look at life expectancy in the United States, the 10 states with the lowest life expectancy are in red. And they're all geographically next to each other. Wow, this was shocking. In case you forgot your geography, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, and West Virginia. There will be a test question at the end. Okay, so I want you to know. So make sure you memorize this. Now, my question was this. As I started to dive into lifestyle medicine more and more, is there a relationship to the lifestyle in this part of the United States and their chronic disease mortality? Is there? Well, let's take a look. I think that there is, but let's take a look at the data. So if we look at, let's look at nutrition. That's a major area. So there's a food export, very popular food export from one of these states. It happens to be the state of Kentucky. And there's a very popular food export from Kentucky to everywhere in the United States. You probably have seen it on some street corner. It's called KFC, otherwise known as Kentucky Fried Chicken. So what does the consumption of Kentucky Fried Chicken look like in the United States? Oh me, oh my. Wow. So the concentration of consumption and visits to Kentucky Fried Chicken is concentrated in the southeast portion of the United States. No kidding. It correlates. All right. We don't say cause and effect when it comes to epidemiology, but it correlates definitely. Well, what about physical activity? Because physical activity is a very important factor for health. Well, let's look at physical inactivity. Well, here's the graph again. So physical inactivity, people in the southeast portion of the United States, again, are not moving. So they're eating greasy fried food. They're not moving. Well, what about stress? Here's the graph on frequent mental distress in the United States. And again, we see this biggest concentration here in the southeast portion of the United States and Fresno. And if you're from there, you know why. All right. And then if we look at sleep deprivation, what we see is that people in the southeast portion of the United States, they're not sleeping. By the way, they're not sleeping in Georgia, Alabama, and Kentucky. I mean, nobody's sleeping there. Nobody. So they're not sleeping. All right. They're eating greasy foods. They're not exercising, and it's horrible. It's horrible. They're not doing well. So lifestyle factors correlate with chronic disease. They correlate with it. My good friend, Dr. Stephen Loam, who is a cardiologist in Chicago area, and he's also board certified in lifestyle medicine. And he says that, I'm going to send you a couple of videos from him. He's really great. And he says that there are 5 major factors that keep us sick here in the United States. Number one is that we've got so much stress that our brains are operating in the sympathetic state, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. And so when we're in the state of survival, our brain is going to do 3 major things. 3 major things. It's going to avoid pain, seek pleasure, and conserve energy. And when we do that, we're going to try to do everything possible to just stay in our hole, stay secure, and not be engaged in exercise and healthy activities. So we're in the state of survival. Another thing that keeps us sick is our family pattern, our pattern of family behaviors. So the pattern of family behaviors, it's not genetic to have heart disease. It's not genetic to have cancer. It's not genetic to have strokes. No, it's not genetic. A lot of people mistakenly believe that it's genetic. Oh, diabetes runs in my family, so I'm going to get it too. No. These are diseases of lifestyle. So we know that if we can change the lifestyle, we can change the pattern of the behaviors that have been happening in your family. Genetics loads the gun, but lifestyle pulls the trigger. So we need to be able to recognize that the lifestyle patterns that are in your family don't have to be repeated. So you can stop that cycle. Another thing that keeps us sick is the nutrition industry itself. They'll sell you anything if they can get away with it. Now, won't they? They will. They will. And do they have your best? Do they have your health as their number one priority? I don't think so. I don't think so at all. Another factor that keeps us sick in the United States is our government. Yeah, it is. I mean, and it's been more apparent this past year than ever before. Because truly, is our government most concerned about our health or most concerned about the economy? Yeah, we can tell. We can tell what their interests are. And it's really very interesting. I mean, I look at how COVID has been managed in other countries across the world, and it's obvious. It's so painfully obvious because we have the worst statistics when it comes to public health than any other country. And then another thing that keeps us sick is the medical industry itself. Now, I can speak to this because I've been inside the belly of the beast. If you think for a moment that physicians know about healthy lifestyle and nutrition, think again. Think again. There's no training in terms of healthy lifestyle and nutrition that physicians are empowered with in their educational process. Just to give you an example, there were about close to 65, 70 questions on the medical board exam for pharmacological drugs related to pharmacy. There was only one question on the exam related to nutrition. That was it. And by the way, the question was, where can you find sources of vitamin D? And the answer was milk. Are you kidding me? That was crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. So these are the things that keep us sick. Now, when it comes to heart disease, the thing that we need to remember is that heart disease is costly. It's so costly. So according to a study published by the American Journal of Managed Care, the average cost per patient with established cardiovascular disease were nearly $19,000 per year. The cost per heart attack exceeded $100,000 per patient. Costs were substantially elevated beyond this for those with other conditions, including diabetes, chronic kidney disease, and depression. And I've seen this. No wonder so many people go completely bankrupt with chronic disease. It really is not a mystery. So in lifestyle medicine, we say we have an answer to all this. Dr. Wayne Dysinger, who's one of the founders of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, says this, that lifestyle medicine is the foundation of healthcare because 80% of healthcare is chronic disease. And 80% of chronic disease is actually caused by lifestyle. So if the disease is caused by lifestyle, the foundation ought to be a lifestyle treatment. Doesn't that make sense? That makes sense. Why throw drugs at this stuff when it's not caused by a deficiency of metformin or deficiency of lisinopril or captopril? It's not caused by that. Let's not go there. Let's change the cause. It's sort of like this. The whole medical world, the way it works, is sort of like this. You walk into your house and you see all this water on your kitchen floor. And what the medical society has been doing is this approach. They quickly get out the mop and start mopping up the kitchen floor. And that's all they do is they keep mopping the kitchen floor, 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 instead of looking to see what's plugging up the sink and turn the darn faucet off. Hello, that's what lifestyle medicine's about. We're going to turn the faucet off and we're going to unplug the sink. Then we'll grab the mop. Okay? That's our approach. It makes a whole much better approach. So let's look at what is the cause of heart disease. Because when I was in medical school, they always told us unknown etiology. That means we don't know the cause, but it happens. Okay, that's what they said. Now, to really understand this, we have to understand the system. This is the cardiovascular system. This is a very simple diagram showing the heart at the center of this cardiovascular system being the pump. So it is a pump, and it's about the size of your fist, maybe just a little bit bigger. All right. So if you make a fist, think of it that way. That's the size of your heart. All right. Now, what it has to be able to do, it has to be able to pump blood out through this red blood vessel here called the aorta. Here's the aorta going all the way down to here. All right. And so that's the major aorta. And then it's got to distribute this blood to every part of the blood. So those are the arteries in red. And then it's going to return back to the heart in the blue blood vessels called the veins. Now, it's a closed system. So it's a pump. Now, what it has to be able to do is it has to create enough pressure to be able to circulate this blood all the way through your entire body. All right, so that's what it has to be able to do. So this pump is constantly working, and there's a very special kind of muscle. It's called heart muscle. So the cardiac muscle is actually capable of working for all these years, and it works every few seconds, every few moments. It's going to pump, it's going to contract and pump this blood. That's what it's doing all the time. Now, it's a closed system, so it's a hydraulic system that's closed. All right, so that's how it works. Now, not only do we have to pump blood throughout the entire body, but we also have to be able to feed the heart itself, because the heart is a muscle and it's a pump. So we have to make sure we nourish it, and we have to distribute this blood to the heart itself. So we have a circulatory system for the heart itself. So we have blood vessels all through the body, and we have blood vessels for the heart itself. Now, this is a map of some of the major heart vessels. So you have this aorta here. That's the big vessel coming off the heart. That's where we're going to deliver all that blood to the rest of the body. And then we've got the right coronary artery over here. And then we have the left main coronary artery. This is called the circumflex artery, which is going to wrap around to the back. And then we have what's called the left anterior descending coronary artery. So this is the one that feeds the blood to the left ventricle. The left ventricle is what's going to distribute the blood into the aorta. So this one is really problematic if we have problems here, because if we have a heart attack with this one, then the ventricle becomes weakened, and now we can't get blood to the rest of the body. So it's really important to have all the vessels working really well, but that's where we have, sometimes we call it the widowmaker. So we have, sometimes it happens here. And so we get a blockage in that area. Now, we have to be able to create enough pressure in the heart. It's got to be able to pump. It's got to be healthy enough that it creates pressure to distribute blood throughout the entire body. So what you think of it this way. So we have to have enough pressure. So take your finger and put it inside your hand that makes a fist. And now squeeze your finger. Squeeze, release, squeeze, release, squeeze, release, squeeze, release, squeeze, release. Okay. Now, that's what your heart is doing all day, all night long. Now, what happens that there's a certain amount of pressure that it needs to be able to generate in order to get the blood to go all through the aorta, the elastic arteries, the muscular arteries, arterioles, and then it gets down to the capillaries, the venules, the medium and large veins. And finally, it gets back to the heart. So it's got to be able to get back to the heart before it runs out of pressure. So it has to be enough pressure, not too much, not too little. So it's got to be just right. So that's what we look at as far as blood pressure. Now, hopefully you know your blood pressure numbers. I'm willing to bet that not everybody does know, but you need to check your blood pressure on a regular basis. It's really a good thing to do. Now, last year, the American Heart Association came out with these blood pressure stages. You should know this because these are indications of heart disease if you have hypertension, high blood pressure. So normal, the first number, systolic, that's the upper number, is less than 120. So if it's 114, 113, 107, great, you're doing wonderful. All right, and the second number, which is what we call the diastolic, is less than 80. So if it's 76, 72, you're fine. All right, so we want to see both of these conditions met for healthy blood pressure. So it should be in the teens or less, and it should be in the 70s or less. All right, that's what we want to see. Now we consider it elevated blood pressure if it's 120 to 129 and less than 80 still for the diastolic. It's considered elevated, so we want to watch that, be paying attention to it. We consider it high blood pressure stage 1 when we start to see the blood pressure go into the 130s and or the 80s for the diastolic. All right, so that's considered high blood pressure stage 1. Either of those, either or, is going to be conditioned for blood pressure stage 1, hypertension stage 1. Hypertension stage 2 is when we start to see it climb up a little higher. So now we're seeing 140 to 170s or 90 to 110, 110s. All right, so that we consider stage 2 hypertension. Now, this is when doctors usually say, we're going to put you on a medication. All right, that's what they usually say at this point. Hypertensive crisis is even higher than that. So that's higher than 180 and or higher than 120 on the diastolic. All right, so that's where we seek emergency care because you've got problems and we need to be able to manage that really, really well. So we're going to talk more about hypertension as we go along as well. I've got some very important tips to help you with that and how we can mitigate that. Now, I recommend for everybody that you actually get a blood pressure monitor. And these days you can do it very, very easily and inexpensively. All right. So you can do this and you can order this. I'm going to send you the link to be able to get this wrist blood pressure monitor. All right. Here's mine right here. All right. So I just put this on my wrist. All right. All I do is I put it on my wrist and I'm able to just put it here and I lift it to the level of my heart. And then I just press the button and then I can get my blood pressure checked. And it's very, very nice. So it's really good to do. So I checked mine, it was 116/72. Okay. So you want to check your blood pressure on a regular basis. So this is well worth it. Well worth it. Don't come up with an excuse saying, well, I don't have time to go down to Walgreens or CVS to get my blood pressure checked or anything else. No, you can. This is a good investment. It comes in a nice little case. I keep it here on my desk. All right. So I check my blood pressure regularly. So it's really important to do. So I'm going to recommend that you do that. All right. So that's one major risk factor is your blood pressure. We're going to talk more about stuff later. Okay. Now, another risk factor that you should know about is your cholesterol. You need to know your cholesterol, but I'm going to tell you the whole story here. All right. So when I was in medical school, I learned about the Framingham study. So it started in 1948. And what they showed in the study was very interesting is that those who had a total cholesterol of less than 150 were shown to have the lowest risk of developing cardiovascular disease. And when they compared to other populations in the world, in rural Asia, Africa, and Latin America, what we saw is that the people who had almost no heart disease whatsoever, their cholesterol ranged in the neighborhood of about 125 to 140. And they had the least amount of heart disease in those areas. So it was really interesting to see. However, it was very fascinating. When we looked at the data, the actual data, I'm going to show you the graphic on it. So what we show is this, is that the blue line are those people with no coronary artery disease. Now, this is after 26 years of evaluation here. So this blue line has a curve of distribution like this. All right, so that's the blue line, no coronary artery disease. Now, the ones with coronary artery disease is everybody under the red line. All right, so the red line, you see it's a little bit further to the right. Okay, and you see it's a little bit thicker, wider. All right, so it's very interesting. There's a significant overlap between these two. So it's not a clean line of demarcation between these two. It's not even that close. There's really far too much of an overlap, but this was the best data we had. So what they did in the medical community, they said this. All right, well, what we see is that in this green area here, the total cholesterol 150 to 200, the absolute risk of coronary artery disease is 20%. We're willing to live with that. That's what they said. We're willing to live with that because that's close to where the mean is for those with no coronary artery disease. So they said, well, if we can get close to that, all right, we're willing to live with a 20% absolute risk. So therefore, we're going to establish for people, if they have a total cholesterol of 200, we're going to say they're fine. We're going to say they're fine, but that's not necessarily the case. All right. So that's the thing. They just arbitrarily decided that, and it's been fed to us in the literature for years, and we've been brainwashed to believe. In fact, doctors have been brainwashed to believe that if you got a total cholesterol less than 200, you're perfectly fine. Nothing to worry about. Not necessarily the case. So what we show is this. If we look at, and what I started to see this, I saw this in my autopsies, right? So if we look at a normal artery at a microscopic level, it looks like a garden hose. So it's like a garden hose. It's got a muscle wall thickness, and the lining inside the garden hose is very slick. It's very, very slick. So it's like a Teflon coating. So blood moves through it very, very easily. Now, when you see a diseased artery, it's got this plaque there, and it's sort of like beeswax that's been hardened. That's the consistency of it. All right, so it feels like that, and it really and it works like that. So it basically starts to form this plaque, and what you can't see really in this diagram is that the muscle walls in those areas has been thinned out. So there's less muscle wall. So it's much stiffer, much harder because of this plaque. Now, if we look at a cross section, this shows a little bit more. So that's one of the things that I got to do is I got to do dissection and then look at, be able to prepare it for microscopic examination. So the healthy artery, if we look at a healthy artery, what we see is this, that it's got a very nice, thick muscle wall here. This is really great. All right, this is what we want to see. And this whole gray area right here in the center, that's normally where it would be filled with blood, but there's no blood in this particular section here. You can't see that. All right, so it's very, very nice. We call that the lumen. Now this, you'll see there's this dark line, and that's just one cell layer thick, and that's on the inner rim of this healthy artery, on the inside of that opening, what we call the lumen. All right, that is the endothelium. I'm going to talk more about that in a minute. Okay, very important, very, very important for the health of the artery. Now, to the right side is a diseased artery. A couple of different features here. So here's the opening where the blood flows has been reduced to this. This is the opening. So this is about 98% occluded or blocked. So we talk about blocked arteries. Yeah, this is it. Because this area here, that's the blockage. That's all the blockage. This is all the plaque and infectious material and junk and oh my God, it's inflammation. It's just it's nasty. Here's the other thing to look at as well, is that the muscle wall of the artery is wiped out over here on the right. There's nothing left. So it's stiff, it can't do anything. All right, it's very simple. Muscles atrophy when you can't use them. All right, so if you don't use it, you lose it. So we lose the muscle. So now this artery is very, very, very depleted. It's gone. It's just wiped out. So it's very stiff. Now this process of getting this blockage built up like this takes a long time. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a slow, gradual process. And what we've discovered is that that really doesn't cause heart attacks nearly as much as what I'm going to show you in a second. The real problem that we need to be concerned about is this very thin, one cell layer thick lining of the artery wall, and that is the endothelial cells. They're one cell layer thick. Now, these endothelial cells are incredibly important, and they're the same kind of cells that you have right in your mouth. So go ahead, take your tongue. Yeah, rub that against the inner side. Use the tongue. Those are endothelial cells. Love your endothelial cells. Gotta love them. So I want you to love, love those endothelial cells that are right in your mouth. I want you to love them everywhere in your body. Okay? So I want you to do that. So they're really important. Now, in your mouth, you've got about 7 to 10 layers thick of endothelial cells. It's really great. That's wonderful. And they slough off all the time and get replaced all the time. Now, I'm sure you probably have bitten your cheek a time or two in your life. Isn't that amazing how we do that as human beings? We bite our cheek. And isn't it crazy? Like within a minute or two later, you do it again? Like, what's up with that? Happens all the time to me. So bite my cheek, oh God, that wasn't good. And then you do it again. Oh, just for good measure. Are you kidding me? Oh, and now it's really tender, right? And then you use your tongue and you touch that and so tender, right? It's because now you have an area of inflammation. So you notice that when you bite your cheek, now it becomes rougher and thicker and more tender. That is an area of inflammation. Now you can feel it in your cheek. Okay, you can feel that. You cannot feel that in your blood vessels. You have all these nerve endings right here. So you can feel the pain when you bite your cheek, but you cannot feel that in your blood vessels. There are no nerve endings there. But you still got endothelial cells there. So what we have to be aware of is that if the conditions foster inflammation, So I'm going to tell you about all the things that cause this. So what we found that heart disease, the real problem is that we start to induce inflammation in our blood vessels. The same that you do when you bite your cheek, we do that in our blood vessels. We induce these pockets of inflammation, just like biting your cheek. And then what happens? It's not the slow growing plaque that is a problem, the atherosclerosis that develops slowly over time. No, what's the real problem is that when we have a pocket of plaque and it's very delicate, and then what happens is that the rim of it, the endothelial cell lining, completely ruptures. It starts to tear. And then because there's blood flowing all the time, it's like a fire hose. And so what it's going to do, it's going to start to rip that pocket of inflammation open. It's like tearing an open wound. Ugh. It's pretty nasty. Now, if it happened anyplace else in your body, you would feel it. It would be excruciating pain. Now, what happens is that it flips open and then it starts to form this clot. And this clot will then block the flow of blood cells downstream. And now if this happens in the coronary artery, this will lead to the heart attack. We thought it was those blocked arteries with the slow blood flow, but still having blood flow. That's not the case so much. What's really the problem are these pockets of inflammation. And this is exactly what happened with my eldest son 3 years ago. He's 34. In July 3 years ago, he was not healthy, obviously. His sleep was erratic. He wasn't drinking much water. He was a vegan, but he was an unhealthy vegan. So he still had plenty of oil and salt and sugar in his diet. He had a lot of stress in his life. He wasn't doing so well. So what happened was that he was helping, and oh, by the way, he was about 50 pounds heavier than he is today. So he was helping a friend move from an upstairs apartment in July. And it was 107 that day. Up the stairs, down the stairs, up the stairs, down the stairs, all the time. Finally finished in the heat of the day. They went to get lunch. He went to the bathroom. The chest pain ensued. She took him to the hospital at Kaiser, Morse Avenue. He called me when he got there. I raced right over. The first EKG looked okay, but the doctor was really not liking the symptoms. The second EKG, by the time I got there, the doctor said, it's not looking good. We're going to take him down to Morse Avenue. To South Sacramento to the cath lab. So my son was put into the ambulance. I followed. And as he was being wheeled in, they said, you're having a minor heart attack right now. So they were able to put the cath in and remove this clot that had formed in his coronary artery. Now, the good news is that my son has completely changed his lifestyle. Completely. And everything I'm going to share with you today is everything that he's learned as well. And it's really remarkable. And he's done extremely well. I got good news to share with you. Okay. All right. But this is what happened in July 3 years ago, 2017. So what we now know this, all right, so that the plaque can form in the lining of the artery, but when there's a rupture, then we see that platelets forming, and that forms that clot. That starts the whole problem. So cholesterol, you need to know. However, you need to be able to distinguish a couple of things when it comes to cholesterol. Total cholesterol, yes, it's important, but even more important if you know the real details. What's really most important for you to know about is your LDL cholesterol. You must know what your LDL cholesterol is. So the low density lipoprotein. So there's two, the LDL and the HDL. Those are the two that we usually report on the blood value. So we have total cholesterol, LDL, and HDL. Now, the LDL stands for low density lipoprotein. So basically think of it as a dump truck. It's a carrier. And what it's going to do is going to carry the cholesterol And if there's inflammation going on inside your blood vessels, this LDL cholesterol carrier, this dump truck, is going to dump cholesterol onto the blood vessel walls to try to patch it up. So think of it as a dump truck trying to patch up the potholes in the road. That's what it's trying to do. So it sees this big pothole, which is an area of inflammation. It says, okay, I'm going to put all of this sand, I'm going to put a lot. So it puts a whole lot. So it's dumping all this sand, which is the gravel, which is the cholesterol. Now, smoking, stress, fat in your diet, and cholesterol foods contribute to higher levels of LDL. And what we show in the research is very interesting. You saw the Framingham data, so there's too much of an overlap between no coronary artery disease and yes, with coronary artery disease when it comes to total cholesterol. But when it comes to LDL cholesterol, we have a clear line. It's really interesting. So the LDL cholesterol, what we show in the research, and this is from Circulation, Journal of Circulation. So what we show is that the lower the LDL, the better. So the higher the LDL increases your risk of developing heart disease. So you want to know your LDL. I always tell everybody, I want your LDL to definitely be less than 100. Definitely, okay? So we want to strive for less than 100. If we get it down to 70 or less, you're doing fabulous, okay? But definitely your target is to get to less than 100. If you're at 130, 160 or higher, then we've got issues to really address. All right, so definitely want to be able to strive for less than 100. So that's the number you want to watch when it comes to your cholesterol level. It's your LDL cholesterol. So keep this graph in mind. Now your HDL, which we sometimes refer to as your good cholesterol, all right, that's your high density lipoprotein. Think of that as being your garbage truck. Okay, so it's your garbage truck. So your garbage truck is going to go around and pick up the garbage. Okay. Okay. So it's going to go and pick up the garbage. So you want your HDL to go up. So it's very important. Okay. So you increase your level of HDL, which decreases your risk with exercise and vitamin C rich foods, which is going to be lots of them. All right. So you want better HDL. So the higher it goes, the better. But more critical as far as your risk for heart disease is your LDL. Keep that in mind. Now, the canary in the coal mine, just so that you know. Now, back in the old days, when they did coal mining, they also brought down into the coal mines the canary. Why? Because if the canary was always singing, then you knew that the oxygen level in the coal mine was safe. But if the canary stopped singing, you were in trouble. If the canary keeled over, you got out of there fast. So there's a canary in the coal mine when it comes to heart disease, which is it's something that doctors don't pay attention to enough. And that is this, it's erectile dysfunction. Okay, it's erectile dysfunction. So loss of sexual function or performance, and both in men and in women, okay, because that's where we have the highest concentration of endothelial cells in our blood vessels. We rank number 1 in the world in erectile dysfunction. Absolutely. Okay. All right. So now 40% of men over the age of 40, that's a lot. And having erectile dysfunction indicates a 500% risk in cardiac episode. Huh? That's not good. So erectile dysfunction equals early death. All right. So pay attention to that. Every doctor who's prescribing Viagra should also be prescribing a lifestyle medicine physician or professional to work with them to reverse their coronary artery disease and their heart disease. So it's not survival of the fittest. It's survival of the firmest. Which would you rather have? I take the carrot. Now, the real cause of heart disease is being in a persistent sympathetic response, having acidification of the bloodstream, and then inflammation of the endothelial cells, which is caused by acid-forming sympathetic foods. We're going to talk about that. And stress. All right. So you put all that together, it's this soup. And this is what we see. This is what people are eating. This is how they're eating. Oh. So what's the cellular mechanism? So I want to really drill down to the basic unit of the body. The unit of the body is the cell. That's where everything is happening. So in a normal cell, we produce energy, adenosine triphosphate, through these mitochondria inside the cell. And what we need is just a little bit of fat, very, very little, to come in, very small amount, very, very small amount. And we need mostly carbohydrates, very specifically amylose and amylopectin. I'll talk more about them later. Now, we need the right ratio of these fuels. I want to talk about this for a second because we need predominantly carbohydrates and a very small amount of fat. So relatively speaking, we need predominantly carbohydrate. How much of each depends on how high your metabolism is. So the higher your metabolism is, the more you could tolerate a little bit higher amount of fat, but you still have to keep a healthy ratio. So it's going to be a healthy ratio. It's going to be probably about 90% carbohydrate and 10% fat. So it's about all you need. Now, in 2004, at Yale University, they developed a new technology to look inside the cell to actually see what was happening inside. And what shocked them was this, that when they looked inside the cells, and they looked in particular in diabetics, so they looked inside the cell, and the cells inside, they had a very special technology, and they lit up with these pockets of intramyocellular lipid, which is a fancy word for fat. Now, why this is shocking, and it really was shocking, was this, because normally the cell volume inside the cell is about 90% water, 90% water, but intramyocellular lipid is fat, which is oil. Now, everybody knows this. Oil and water don't mix, do they? No. I mean, you can do this at home. You can take a glass, put water and oil, and where does the oil go? It goes to the top. It forms a slick on the surface. So what happens out in the ocean when you have an oil derrick leak or a tanker breaks? All right, oil creates a slick. What happens to the marine life underneath? It goes belly up and dies because it suffocates. So what is happening on the inside of the cell? What's happening on the inside of the cell is that the fat is getting on the inside of the cell. And this is what shocked the scientists at Yale University. And it's forming an oil slick on the inner surface of the cell. We thought the problems were on the outside of the cell. We thought wrong. We didn't have the technology to actually see this until 2004. And so it's like this thin layer of saran wrap. You can see right through it, but it's suffocating you and you can't breathe. So this is the problem at the cellular level. We start seeing this fat getting into the cells. When we eat fat, what we didn't realize is that fat not only goes to the fat cells, but it goes to all the cells, all the cells. So it starts forming these oil slicks on the inside of the cells. So the biggest culprit when it comes to heart disease is excess fat in the diet. And I love what Dr. John McDougall says, that the fat you eat is the fat you wear. And you wear it inside your cells and outside your cells. You wear it everywhere. In the United States, we have more fat consumption than just about any place else on the face of the planet. All right, we're number one. Go USA. Well, and when we look at the pattern of fat consumption in the last 50 years, we see that in 1970, added fats and oils accounted for 338 calories of the diet. And that ballooned up in 2010 to 562 calories. I'll look forward to seeing the data for 2020. That'll be interesting to see. In this report, when we analyzed it, what we showed is that the increase in the percentage of caloric growth, 48% of the increase in caloric growth was due to added fats. Added fats. And that's what's been happening in the United States. So when we look, the source of those fats, it hasn't been from butter, lard, or margarine. No, my friends, it's been from vegetable oils. Vegetable oils has been skyrocketing in the last 30 years, especially. It's been the last 40, more like 50 years. It's been skyrocketing. Now, not all fats are the same. Not all fats are the same. There are healthy fats and unhealthy fats. So these are 4 different fat molecules. This is the molecular structure diagrams. So C represents the carbon atom, H represents the hydrogen atom, O represents the oxygen atom. Now, this particular fat, I don't have time to teach biochemistry today, but this represents a very healthy fat. It's called alpha linolenic acid, otherwise known as an omega-3. Now, why is it called an omega-3? It's because carbon can normally attach to 4 atoms at a time. But in this particular fat molecule, what we see are these 3 carbon-carbon double bonds. These double bonds are high energy bonds, which can be broken open and manipulated and converted to create new molecules that we can use. So when it comes to our biology as human beings, these carbon atoms, actually these fat molecules that have these 3 carbon-carbon double bonds are very good for us because we can use them. They're very useful. So they're very healthy for us to have. So we need to have the predominant amount of fats that we have in our diet should come from omega-3 fats, which, by the way, come from plants, okay? Plants. I just want you to know that. All right, plants. Now, this one is linoleic acid, and it's an omega-6. So the first carbon-carbon double bond is on the 6th atom. That's why it's called an omega-6. Now, when these kinds of fats come from animal sources, they actually stimulate inflammation, just so you know. That's how that works. And then up here we have an omega-9, and omega-9 is what we see a lot of times. We have fatty acids. They manipulate and they put 1 carbon-carbon double bond or something like that, and so we get this monounsaturated fat. All right, so that's what we end up with. So that's an omega-9. Not very healthy for us. But the least healthy, in fact, the worst, the absolute worst, like nothing, it provides nothing for us, is this fat molecule up at the top. And this is palmitic acid, which is a saturated fat. All the carbons are saturated with hydrogens. So there's nothing we can do with it. There are no active carbon-carbon double bonds that we can take with this and break it apart and manipulate it and do something else. All our bodies can do with this type of fat is roll it up and manufacture more cholesterol, which we don't need. Okay, we don't need it. So this is really not healthy for us at all, at all. And it has the same biological chemistry as these modified fats. I want you to know this saturated fat is the same chemically in our body as these fats. These are fat molecules, in case you didn't know. Yeah, they're fat molecules, in case you didn't know. Plastic, motor oil, diesel fuel, and gasoline. Yeah, those are fat molecules. Did you know that? Yeah. So the next time you want to have some saturated fat, added to your diet, think of adding, would you add motor oil to your cereal and think that that's a good idea? I hope not. I hope not. So we need to understand that. So when it comes to our bodies being able to metabolize fat, some very interesting statistics here. So the American diet has an average of 161 grams of fat per person per day. That's a lot. That's a lot, folks. If you were to purify that as just oil, that would be about 3/4 of a cup of oil a day. A day. I should bring my measuring cup out here. That's a lot. All right, measure that out. That is a lot of fat. That's a lot of grease every single day. Now, we have to be able to metabolize it. We can't handle that much. There's just no way. A collegiate athlete, my youngest son, he's 6'5", 180 pounds, 46% muscle, 9% body fat. All right, this guy is an athlete. He's incredible. He burns about 85 to 90 grams of fat a day. That's a collegiate athlete. He's a swimmer. Now, you and I, no, we're not doing that. If you have a heart condition, if you have diabetes, if you have cancer, your target is less than 20 grams of fat a day. That's your target. That is your target. So you need to be able to also check your grams of fat that you have in your diet every single day. Very important here. Very, very important. So if you haven't been measuring your fat grams, now's a good time. Now's a good time. I'm going to send you in the email a chart with 9 pages of all kinds of foods and how many grams of fat. So you can start to know about this and start reading the labels. Really important. So I'm going to show you the major sources of fat, just so you know. Oh, by the way, here's what happens. Here's what we show. So this is old research published in the Journal of the American Medical Association, 1955. And by the way, I've seen this. Here's what happens when we eat fat. So we have this average plasma lactescence curve. Now, here's what we do. Preprandial, here's how much fat is in the blood in units. All right, so we've got like 45, 50 units of fat. All right, now here's what happens. They have a meal like this, okay? All right, so you got 2 eggs, bacon and eggs. So you got bacon and eggs for breakfast, right? Now, the fat doesn't immediately hit the blood vessels. What happens is it starts to climb. And it starts to climb. And it reaches the peak 5 hours later, which is right about the time they're having their next meal. Okay, so this is what happens with just one meal. And I used to see this because I would draw blood on people before they ate. And then I would draw blood on people 2 hours after they ate, 2 hours. So it was right here. And then I would spin their blood down and look at their blood. Now, when the blood cells are spun in the centrifuge, the cells settle to the bottom, and the fluid, which is called the plasma, is on top. Usually you can see right through it. It's clear yellow. It looks just like urine. In the people who had this kind of a meal, 2 hours later, it was like curdled milk. Huh. You couldn't see through it and would come out in clumps, literally. It was nasty, ugly. Okay, so don't eat this kind of food. It's just horrible. All right, so your major sources of fat. I just want you to be aware. Okay, all right. So here's the thing. Major sources of fat. If you're an athlete, you need fat. You need the right amount of fat. You need the healthy fats. All right, but number one, most egregious culprit is going to be oils. All oils, it doesn't matter. Okay, doesn't matter what kind. It's 100% grease. Even if it's extra virgin olive oil. I don't care. All right. So just don't do it. All right. And especially worse is going to be when you fry the foods in oil. Okay, hush puppies, French fries, fried chicken, whatever, fried fish, doesn't matter. By the way, McDonald's French fries have 17 ingredients in McDonald's French fries, 15 of which are known to cause cancer. Is that a good idea? I don't think so. All right, the science on oils, just so that you know, there's extensive science showing that oils are not healthy for you. They're not. You've been brainwashed into believing that. Okay, it's not true. So decreases artery endothelial function, flow-mediated vasodilation, increases your triglycerides. So that's another, if you have high triglycerides, that may be an indication that you've got oil in your diet or you got a source of oil. Also sodas can do that too. All right, decreases oxygen transfer, sympathetic response, increases inflammation, increases cholesterol. None of these are good. Okay, none of these are good, not at all. All right, Dr. Esselstyn says it well. I will invoke his spirit here right now. No oil. Okay, I hope you got the message. Okay. Now, another source of fat in the body is going to be from all meats. It doesn't matter what kind, all right? Beef, pork, poultry, fish, and eggs, all of it, especially egregious, are going to be all the processed meats, all right? Salami, pepperoni, sausages, bacon, hot dogs. Oh, they're just horrible. Really, really bad. All right. Eggs are not good either. Okay. So eggs, by the way, here's the research on the eggs. So cardiovascular disease increased by 19%. Don't go there. All right. All the rest, not good. So stay away from the eggs. All dairy is problematic as well because, and by the way, cheese is made from about 70% milk fat. All right. So it's 70% fat. We love it so much. Oh, yeah, but it's fat. It's predominantly fat. So it's very addicting. There's also all these hormones that are in the cheese that make it so addicting. Oh my gosh, it's so addicting. By the way, it was the last thing to go for me. Oh, I know, I was addicted. Okay, so I know how hard it is, but it really has to go. My good friend, Dr. Neil Barnard, has a book called The Cheese Trap. If you have an issue with cheese, read that book. It's powerful. Now, here's another thing that happens when you have meat, dairy, and eggs. When you have that in your diet, what we show when it comes to heart disease, it's very important to understand this particular compound called trimethylamine oxide. So when we eat red meat, poultry, liver, fish, milk, cheese, and eggs, those foods produce these particular compounds called carnitine, phenylcarnitine, choline, and betaine. Now, what happens is that these are foreign to the human body. We can't use them, not like this. So we have to have a particular species of bacteria that start to proliferate in the bacteria if we have these in our diet on a regular basis. Then what happens, they have to process it to try to mitigate the harm that these can cause to our body. So these bacteria then process these compounds and transform them as they get into the bloodstream into a compound called trimethylamine. So trimethylamine, really toxic. All right, not good, not good. So it gets shuttled over to the liver. The liver is our major detox factory. So the liver is going to work on trying to detox anything that is being toxic to the body. So it's going to take that trimethylamine, and just like, you know, when you have a cast iron skillet and you put water on it, it's going to start to rust. All right, so it's going to start to oxidize that trimethylamine and add an oxygen to it, and it'll convert it to trimethylamine oxide. It's a little less toxic, but still harmful. But that ends up being in our blood vessels. And what happens, it causes all kinds of inflammation in the blood vessel lining of the endothelial lining of the cell, blood vessel walls, leading to heart attack, stroke, death, and revascularization. Not good. Not good. Now, healthy fats, I just want you to know, really good healthy fats are going to come from nuts, seeds, and avocados. Really great source of healthy fats. Really, they're great. However, if you have heart disease, if you have diabetes, if you have cancer, if you got too much fat in your diet, you need to get down to 20 grams of fat a day or less, then you need to watch it with these foods as well. Because one avocado is about 30 grams of fat. A handful of nut seeds is going to be anywhere from about 14 to 22 grams of fat. So it can add up very quickly. So you need to watch it. Very, very important. Okay, now that's culprit number one. Culprit number two, refined sugar. Yeah, it's a drug. It looks like a drug. Guess what? It is a drug. It is. Okay, it is toxic. It is a time bomb in the body, and it stimulates the sympathetic nervous system, causes all kinds of problems, promotes more inflammation that you don't need. All right, you don't need it. So it's just something to avoid. Do not go with the sugar. All right, stay away from refined sugar. And then stay away from processed foods also. Stay away from all those. I don't care if the label says healthy choice. That's just marketing, okay? Do you believe everything you read or hear? Come on now. All right, so it's got all kinds of wonderful marketing pictures on these. No, okay, you have to pay attention to this. Stay away from anything that's boxed or processed like this. Another culprit is going to be alcohol. Yes. They've been marketing this, okay? They've been saying moderate alcohol benefits. I saw this this was put out on Facebook. Lower risk of cardiovascular disease, can improve men's libido. Think again. All right. Reduces the risk of gallstones. Not. All right. Lowers chances of diabetes. Absolutely not. Lengthens your lifespan. Absolutely not. And decreases the chances of developing dementia. Absolutely not. None of this is true. Not one bit of it. And this is what's marketed. It's out there. Okay. None of this is true. The truth about alcohol, my friends. Okay. It contributes to high blood pressure. It does. Even one drink increases your risk of stroke. It damages your heart muscle immediately. It leads to heart failure, and it causes abnormal heart rhythms and adversely interacts with medications. And most people who are on medications have alcohol along with their medications. Oh, that's a nightmare for physicians. It is. It's crazy. And it's really interesting because they did some research years ago. And what they said was this. They said, what we show is that people who have one drink a day actually have less risk of heart disease than people who have no drinks a day or people who have a lot. And this led to what we call the famous J curve. The only problem, these were people at elevated risk of heart disease over the age of 45 with fasting blood glucoses already greater than 100. They had diabetes. They had diabetes. And then they're promoting like one drink a day is perfectly healthy. No, no. So when you compared that with people with relatively low risk of heart disease under the age of 45 with fasting blood sugars less than 100, you saw that the curve went like this. Oh, it's like this. Skewed evidence for the purposes of marketing. Yep. So there is no safe level when it comes to alcohol, my friends. None. So if you have heart disease, if you have hypertension, if you're drinking alcohol, you need to quit. All right. I'm just going to tell you straight up. All right. Quit. The link between alcohol abuse and increased heart disease conditions is staggering. Twofold increase in atrial fibrillation, 1.4-fold increase in heart attack, 2.3-fold increase of congestive heart failure. It's just dynamite that you're playing with. Don't play with it. The American Medical Association just a few months ago released this statement to the Nutrition Guidelines Committee for the United States. And this is not only does it cause problems for heart disease, but also for cancer. There is no safe threshold of alcohol and cancer risk. So you got to get this right. And so, I mean, so drinking alcohol, 1 bottle of wine per week is equivalent to 5 cigarettes per week in men and 10 cigarettes per week in women. Not good. And well, what about the risk of cigarette smoke and heart disease? We know that already causes problem. It's toxic to the blood vessels and increases the risk of heart disease. No kidding. We know that. So if you do smoke, the best thing you want to be able to do is you want to be able to get this book, Alan Carr's Easy Way to Stop Smoking. Absolutely fabulous. It works really well. I recommend it. Now, another risk factor when it comes to heart disease is going to be caffeine. Caffeine, okay? So the consumption of energy drinks, just to show you how dramatic it is now, in energy drinks, that leads to a significant increased risk of arrhythmia and up to a 500% increased risk of stroke. It's amazing to me. I come across some people say, well, 1 cup of coffee surely can't hurt me. I said, why would you do that? Why would you do that? If you know that if any bit of it hurts you, like, is a little bit of cocaine okay for you? Is a little bit of LSD okay for you? Like, come on now. Like, where did common sense go in this country? All right. It's kind of a curse to have common sense, I've discovered. All right. So, people don't think. They don't think. All right. So this is what caffeine does. And by the way, caffeine and nicotine are kissing cousins. They're both alkaloids. They're wonderful pesticides. They're wonderful pesticides. Absolutely. Coffee grounds in your garden will kill all the snails. Absolutely. Best use for it. Really is. It's great. Now, I've thoroughly depressed you. All right. You said, now what is there left for me? Ugh. So what foods actually promote your health? So I want to give you the good news. So let's go to that. To understand what foods actually promote your health, we have to understand how the body works as an energy system. We'll go back to the model of understanding the body at the cellular level. So the engine of your car, which is every cell is like an energy system, like a car is. So the mitochondria is your engine. And you can have lots of mitochondria if you develop it right. Now, the infrastructure, protein is for parts, only for parts. It is not for fuel. Hope you get that straight. The fuels, we need 2, a little bit of triglyceride. All right, we need a little bit, just a little bit. That's your fat. And then we need predominantly glycogen, which is the human gasoline. So if we go back to that biochemical figure that I showed you earlier, so what we need is a little bit of fat to fuel the mitochondria, but we need the glycogen inside the cell, which is human gasoline. Then it needs to be broken down to something called pyruvate, which is half of a glucose molecule. Now, we can only formulate this glycogen from 2 specific carbohydrates. A lot of people say carbs are bad, carbs are bad, carbs are bad. No, there are 2 specific carbohydrates that we must have. So the next time somebody say, my carbs are bad for me, I said, are you talking about amylose and amylopectin, or are you talking about something else? They'll kind of look at you a little funny. All right. So we need two specific carbohydrates, amylose and amylopectin. We must have these two carbohydrates in order to formulate glycogen to produce energy. We must have these two. These two compounds, amylose and amylopectin, they look like this. Is a molecular structure diagram. Each circle is a glucose molecule. And we have this enzyme called amylase that helps us to convert this to glycogen inside the cell. So that's what we're able to do. Okay, so now amylose and amylopectin, I'm sure you have not seen on any food labels any marketing that said high in amylose and amylopectin. I've never seen it. But amylose and amylopectin are otherwise known as starch. Yes, starch. This is the cover of the scientific journal. Starch. Yes, starch. For you and me, though, looks like this. Legumes, beans, peas, lentils. There's over 2,000 varieties. Knock yourself out. You'll never get bored. All right. Whole grains, not processed grains, not flour. I'm talking about whole grains. Starchy vegetables, including my favorite, potatoes. Oh my gosh, I love my potatoes. There are over 4,000 variety of potatoes. I had no idea. The Incas developed them. And then squashes, sweet potatoes. Oh, they're all fabulous or wonderful. And then all plant material produces starch, including all vegetables. In case you forgot what they look like, I thought I'd show you a picture. All right, this is where you want to go in the supermarket. Go here. All right, this is what real food looks like. Yes, it's not in a box. It's not in a box. And then fresh fruit, you want plenty of this as well. The number one thing that we need for a healthy, longer life is fresh fruit. Absolutely fabulous for our health. The benefits of this dietary approach: whole legumes, whole grains, vegetables, and fruit. Those are your 4 food groups. So the benefits of following a diet with this composition, amazing. There's research for all of this. I'm not going to read through all of them because I've got 2 pages of this stuff. It's so incredible. There's so many benefits from being able to operate this way. It's incredible. We got tons of research studies that back up the benefits of this approach. Just remember this, that the food that you eat can either be the safest and most powerful form of medicine, or it's going to be the slowest form of poison. It will be the slowest form of poison. Keep that in mind. Please keep that in mind. Now you get to choose. You're an adult. Okay. I'm just going to give you the information and the research. You get to choose. All right. But every time you eat or drink, you're either feeding disease or fighting it. That's all there is. That's how it works. That's the reality that you're going to have to be responsible for. Freedom does not come without responsibility. Freedom does not come without responsibility. So yes, you have the freedom to choose whatever you want, but you have a responsibility that goes right along with it. So do you want to teach your children to be responsible human beings, or just to be carefree and do whatever the hell they want? All right. Now I've got 4 boys and I've taught them to be responsible human beings. All right. That works. That works. So here's my food pyramid. My food pyramid, it's an inverted pyramid because food works this way. So the food on the bottom part, the bottom half, are all the foods that stimulate a sympathetic response in the central nervous system. These are all toxic foods or refined sugar, deep fried foods, all sodas. All legal drugs include alcohol, nicotine, and caffeine. And then excitotoxins include MSG and aspartame. All right. Now, the foods that cause inflammation: meat, dairy, oils, and processed foods. That's what you want to avoid, reduce, eliminate, whatever you want to do. My invitation for you is to accentuate and increase the foods that are up here: the starchy veggies, whole grains, legumes, greens, colorful veggies, and fruit, because those are life promoting, promote the parasympathetic branch of your central nervous system. They work really well. So that's the invitation to all of you. All right, now a little bit about the research, because I want to be able to go into that, because all of this is backed up by a tremendous amount of research. Okay, let me couple of questions here before I go into that. Let's see. What about triglycerides? Okay, let's see. That's a good question. So triglycerides are usually an indication, if they go up, it's usually an indication you have some processed foods that are higher in your diet. So you have to look at that. So there's a lot of different variables as far as that, and we don't want those to be much more than 100. So we want to be those in a reasonable area. Let's see. I try to eat less than 20 grams a day, got amazing results, but it's hard to do long term. Well, the thing is, you want to do it to a point where you become healthy again, and then you're going to reintroduce the right amount of fat that's going to keep you healthy. So it's a beginning, but it's stage one. So stage one is get the fats down to less than 20 grams of fat until you get healed. And then once you get healed, what you're going to do is reintroduce the right amount of fat that your body can manage and metabolize. So that's what you're going to be able to do in the second phase. So that's what works there. Red wine, it doesn't matter. It's all alcohol. Okay. Alcohol all causes problems. That's part of the marketing. So they got you. Okay. So that's what happens. Okay. Decaf coffee. Decaf does not mean uncaffeinated coffee. All right. It does not mean uncaffeinated. It just means reduced by 10%. That's all it means. Legally, that's all it means. It's reduced by 10%. That is all it does. All right. So very, very good. Okay. All right. And I love Dr. John McDougall's book, The Starch Solution. Love it. I know John personally. He's great. All right. So now let me go into some of the research with you. So we're going to talk about heart disease. One of the best books that you can read regarding health for your heart. If you've got hypertension, if you have heart disease, you have arrhythmias, you have any kind of heart-related condition or vascular condition, aortic atherosclerosis, whatever the case may be, I want you to run and get this book called Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease by my good friend, Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn. He is amazing, absolutely amazing. So wonderful, wonderful human being, passionate, completely dedicated. Now, one of the things that was interesting for him is that he was looking at research and he came across this research about the country of Norway. So it was fascinating. In Norway, in 1927, they had 24 deaths per 10,000 population. And that gradually increased over the years until 1939. All right, it got up to about 30 deaths per 10,000. So at 1939, this is a pretty healthy country, by the way. So in 1939, something happened in Norway that started the decline of heart disease mortality, cardiocirculatory mortality in Norway until 1945. So what happened in Norway? Well, what happened in Norway in 1939, the German army invaded Norway and confiscated all the animals. And they left the Norwegians with nothing but potatoes and vegetables to eat. That was it. That was it. All the dairy cows gone, all the cattle gone, all the sheep gone, everything, all to feed the German army. So that's all they ate, potatoes and vegetables, for 6 years until June 1945. And then June 1945, the war ended. And then the animals came back. And then what happened? Circulatory disease mortality started to climb back up again. Now, this isn't the only country we've seen this in. We've also seen this intentionally in Denmark in World War I and in World War II as well. So we've seen this, and it's very fascinating. So Dr. Esselstyn said, this is fascinating. So if an entire country of millions of people is left with a diet of nothing but potatoes and vegetables, and they all thrived, they all did well, what if we intentionally did that? What if we took some people with circulatory disease and we actually intentionally gave them a diet of potatoes and vegetables? What if we did that? I wonder what would happen. So at the Cleveland Clinic, Dr. Esselstyn took 24 very sick cardiovascular disease patients who had already had previous episodes, and their doctors had told them, get your affairs in order, prepare to die. There's nothing more we can do for you. So he took 24 of those people. Now, 18 of them followed his Norwegian dietary approach, just potatoes and vegetables, and they all lived for over 20 years. All of them lived for over 20 years more. All of them lived for over 20 years more. They had been told, get your affairs in order, prepare to die. The other 6 that did not follow, they did die shortly after. So that was interesting. So this led to his groundbreaking book, Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease. and it was wonderful. But then, there's always critics. So some people criticize Dr. Esselstyn, which he's not a person you would likely criticize, because he's about 6'4". He is an Olympic gold medalist. I mean, he is an amazing human being. He's got power and stature. Like, really, you're going to take a shot at him? So some people took some shots at Dr. Esselstyn and said, well, your study was too small. It should have more people in it. And it should be more focused over a period of 4 years and all this stuff. And he said, fine, I'll do another study. So he did. So in 2010, Dr. Esselstyn embarked in a second study. He took 198 patients, 8 times as many. 177 or 89% followed the Norwegian dietary approach, a plant-based diet. And then the 21 or 11% did not follow the plan. He published the findings in the Journal of Family Practice. I'm going to send this to you in the email. Now, the ones who did not follow the plan, here are the results. All right, so blue is good, red is bad. All right, so what we expect in the research is this, that people who have had a history of cardiovascular disease, that we know that they have about a 2 out of 3 probability of having a repeat cardiovascular disease event within a period of 4 years. We know that. And sure enough, that group, that's exactly what happened. All right. So out of that group that did not follow the plant-based diet, all right, they did the regular American Medical Association protocols, that 2 out of 3, about 62%, had repeat cardiovascular disease event within those 4 years. Okay, 38% did not. But the ones who did follow the whole food plant-based diet, which is the same as the Norwegians did, here are the results. Blue is good, red is bad. 99.4% no cardiovascular disease event, none whatsoever. One person went on a business trip to Chicago, had a greasy cheeseburger, and had angina the next day. My friends, there is no drug that comes close to this. There's no statin will do this. None whatsoever. This is a level of efficacy we have never seen in anything else in clinical history. Nothing else in clinical history comes close. Nothing else. This is remarkable. And Dr. Esselstyn said, there. Now take a shot at me. I love it when a plan comes together. Now, here's what he did. He actually stacked up his study versus the other studies looking at recurrent major cardiac events. So treating the cause down here, 0.6% recurrence versus these other studies that showed 19.4%, 20.4%, and 25% recurrence. He outperformed every other research study that's ever been done looking at recurrent cardiac events by a significant margin. In addition, he had a colleague of his who's a physician who had such bad heart disease that when he had his angiogram, they said, this is so much extensive coronary artery disease, we can't even do a bypass. So this doctor was so depressed that Dr. Esselstyn said, why don't you come into my program? You have nothing to lose. So we went into the program. 32 months later, because he's a physician, he was able to get a repeat angiogram, and look at what happened. Completely reopened the blood vessels, completely healed. Completely healed. It was amazing. It was amazing. So what we see is this, that a whole food plant-based diet is that when we start to engage in this anti-inflammatory approach to eating, that the plaques stabilize, and guess what? The inflammation starts to recede and it heals. And yes, the atherosclerosis goes away. Isn't that amazing? And this is exactly what's happened with my eldest son, because a year after having his heart attacks, he was able to completely stabilize and heal his blood vessels completely. He lost 50 pounds, healed his heart completely off of all medications. It's remarkable. So this is what's possible, my friends. It is possible to heal. We know this now. We know it's possible to do this. And so a whole food plant-based diet that's oil-free will keep your arteries clean. Whereas if you're vegetarian, you have dairy in your diet, you're going to have some plaque. And if you're carnivore, you're definitely going to have a lot more inflammation. Now, I love what my good friend, Dr. Michael Greger, the author of the book, How Not to Die, and one of the co-founders of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. And he says this, that if that's all a plant-based diet can do, reverse the number one killer of men and women, shouldn't that be the default diet until proven otherwise? I happen to agree. Absolutely, yes. Dr. Esselstyn says that sometimes people come to him and they have complaints about his approach. And he sometimes has this conversation with them. He says, so you have two choices. We could perform triple bypass surgery where we take a vein out of your thigh and then we rip open your chest so that we can sew the vein into your coronary artery. This costs you more than $100,000 and will keep you laid up for at least 2 months, not to mention all the other complications. Or we can simply put you on a whole food plant-based vegan diet. And the patient responds, a vegan diet? Gee, doc, that sounds pretty extreme. Really? So the risk of heart disease, if you're a meat eater, it's about 50%. If you're a vegetarian, it's about 45%. But if you're a plant-based vegan, it's even less than 4%. If you're vegan, just vegan, it's 4%. But if a whole food plant-based vegan, it's about 0.4%. Okay, so it's really low. Now, a lot of people say, well, I got to have my meat for my protein. I need my protein. Well, I want to share with you this research in regards to protein and cardiovascular disease. We actually did research where we went head to head with animal protein versus plant protein. And this was published 2 years ago in the International Journal of Epidemiology. And what we showed is that the people who had meat protein in their diet had a 60% increase in cardiovascular disease, while those who had plant protein in their diet had a 40% decrease in cardiovascular disease. Here's the graph. All right, my friends, 60% increase versus a 40% decrease. That's a 100% swing in risk. Like, that's a no-brainer. There's no drug that comes close to this. There's nothing that comes close to this. All right, so really, in addition, we had incredible research that was done in a clinical trial. So we had an 8-week randomized clinical trial, the highest gold standard when it comes to clinical research, to assess inflammation differences in patients, in post-angiography patients with established coronary artery disease. This is published in the Journal of the American Heart Association. And what we showed, a vegan plant-based diet versus the American Heart Association diet, which includes some meat, dairy, and eggs, we showed that the vegan diet resulted in 32% lower high sensitivity C-reactive protein when compared with the American Heart Association diet. And it's published in their journal. They lost, and it's published in their journal. Okay, so you got to get that right. Other things that can help you in the research, we show this, very, very powerful. Flax seeds. Flax seeds in the diet as a therapeutic aid. Food, all right? Let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. All right, so we had a 6-month double-blind study that found that a 1/4 cup of ground flax seeds a day decreased the systolic by 10 to 15 and the diastolic by 7 points when it comes to older adults and hypertension. Stroke risk decreased by 46%. Heart disease risk by 29%. And this is comparable to many drugs with no side effects except for the pleasant, nutty flavor. Yes, I have it with my oatmeal every single morning. Ground them all up. Okay, I get ground flaxseed from Trader Joe's. You can get organic ground flaxseed. Another thing that can help as well, especially when it comes to hypertension and risk of heart disease, is hibiscus tea. So there was a big study called the Premier Clinical Trial, a randomized 6-month, 800 men and women with high blood pressure. So we put them into 3 different groups. A control group, we just gave them advice. Another group, we put them on the DASH diet, all right, which was still a vegetarian diet. And then the other third group, what we did is they had a cup of hibiscus tea with each meal, all right? So 3 times a day. So the hibiscus tea was shown to be as effective, most effective of all those three, and as effective as 25 milligrams of captopril twice a day. That's 50 milligrams. So the lisinopril, captopril, commonly used for hypertension, and they're prescribed like crazy. Now you combine this with a plant-based diet, it's about 4 times more effective. Whew. Why take a drug with all these side effects? Really? Like, why do that? Another thing that we see in the science that's really important, it is important, and that is to decrease your salt. Very, very important. Okay, so very important. So dozens of studies show that if we reduce our salt intake, we reduce our blood pressure. Absolutely. The greater the reduction, the greater the benefits. Now, lowering your salt helps independently of other dietary improvements. So your goal, if you got high blood pressure, your goal is to really watch your milligrams of sodium, and your goal is about 1,500 milligrams a day or less. So you want to watch that, really important. I was talking to my son about this, and he said, wow, I wonder what happens when I go out to Chipotle or Pollo Loco or something like that. And so when you look at the dietary guidelines of all these places where you go out to eat, you'd be amazed how much sodium is in some of these foods. Just in one dish, you can go up to over 2,500, 3,000 milligrams of sodium, just like that. So it happens very, very quickly. Another thing that can help you, the research shows this very, very clearly. This should be on CNN every single night, that 5 glasses of water per day decrease your risk of a heart attack or stroke by 50%. 50%, just this. And this is over 20,000 participants in the Adventist Health Study. This should be on the news every night as far as I'm concerned. So it's really big. And if you have to lose some weight to go along with this, drink your water, because what we show, a randomized 12-week clinical trial, 2 cups of water before your meals, a 44% greater rate of weight loss. This is fabulous. All right, I'm all out to put Jenny Craig out of business. All right, let's put him out of business. All right, just drink water. All right, so here's what you want to do. Here are my tips. Drink water, all right? Drink 2 full glasses of water first thing in the morning, 8 ounces each. Hydrate your brain, you need that. And your heart needs it, okay? Your blood vessels need it. Drink a glass of water before and after each meal, before a workout, and 2 glasses after your workout. So make sure you get plenty of water. And make sure you check your urine, because that's how you know you're drinking enough water. So it should be pale yellow to clear. So if it's amber or dark, you're not drinking enough water. Exercise, also critically important. The research shows that it's important. So what fits your busy schedule better? Exercising 1 hour a day or being dead for 24 hours a day. Okay. All right. What's it going to be, boo-boo? So you want to definitely do exercise and do what you can. Gradually increase. So you want to reduce your health risks. All right. Definitely being able to do that. You want to strengthen your heart. It's a muscle. So if you don't use it, you lose it. Conversely, if you use it, you get stronger. All right. So that's what you want to be able to do. So you want to be able to exercise your heart gradually increase it. Man, it helps you to manage your chronic conditions. It absolutely helps. All right. Resting does not help. All right. And it keeps your arteries clear. You want to keep things moving. So it's very important to exercise. Another area that's critically important with my clients, I always talk about sleep. It is so important. So sleep apnea, by the way, increases the risk of cardiovascular disease significantly. All right. And we need about 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Now, what we show in the research is this is very, very fascinating. There's a phenomenon that occurs every single year in so many countries with so many people, that in the spring, when we spring forward to daylight savings time, we lose an hour of sleep, and we show the next day there's a 24% increase in heart attacks the next day. You can set your clocks by it. So it's significant. Not nearly as high as Christmas Eve, that's 40%, but this is still very high. In the fall, when we gain that extra hour of sleep, it's a 21% decrease in heart attacks the next day. We also show that in the research with sleep, in terms of total cardiovascular disease, coronary heart disease, and stroke, the sweet spot for sleep is this area between about 7 to 8 hours of sleep. So this area here, around 7 hours of sleep, shows the lowest relative risk of mortality from those conditions. So 7 hours is your number to shoot for. So you want to have 7 or a little bit more. That's where you want to be. So the most important tip that we show amongst the researchers is this: regular schedule. Keep a regular schedule. The more regular your schedule is, the more your body will adapt to it, and it makes a difference. Stress is also a major factor. I have a whole seminar on stress management. Check that one out. So we need to be able to unwind. It's very, very important. Lots that you can do: meditation, awareness training, eliminating multitasking because it doesn't work. Now, the most powerful skill, Dr. Andrew Huberman, I'm going to send you his video on this. It's really very exciting work because we naturally breathe this way when we sleep. And that is to be able to take a deep inhale, pause, inhale a little bit more, and then a long, deep exhale. Now, when we do that, we actually stimulate the parasympathetic state. We offload more CO2 and ingest more oxygen than in any other type of breath. So it's really exciting work that he's doing. So I'm going to send you that information. It's excellent. And we also see the mental effects as well. So we see that affects the brain and how we work. And then the last bit of research that I want to share with you is from my good friend, Dr. Joel Kahn. He's a cardiologist. And he says this: when it comes to heart disease, it is very important. Every cardiologist, if you have a doctor or a cardiologist, then he or she should be prescribing that you absolutely have. Yes, you need more of this. Yes, because what we show is that 1 time or less a month increases the risk of heart disease by 50%. 8 times a month, 36% decreased risk of heart disease. 16 times a month, that's 4 times a week, my friends, 50% decreased risk of heart disease. Improves your memory, executive function, verbal fluency, decreases homocysteine, which is correlated with Alzheimer's, and increases testosterone for men. I'm going to send you the article. Okay. Yes. So I've given you lots of tips and research and practices to take on. Number 1, drink more water, eat more whole grains, legumes, fruits, and vegetables, reduce your fat, no oil, move more, reduce alcohol and smoking, improve your sleep habits, reduce your stress, and love more. All right, so plenty for you to work on. And here's what I recommend: pick at least one thing. Pick at least one thing and get started there. The one area that will make the most impact. Don't play small. Don't play small. Pick the one thing that you know you're weakest at. Go there. Go there. Start there. That's where you want to start. Okay, so now I'm going to answer questions after I go to this last thing. So I have one more question for you. Would you like to make the rest of your life the best of your life? I certainly hope so. I hope so. Now, imagine for a moment that you are living your best life. What would that look like for you? Would you have a healthy heart that would allow you to be active and being able to be participating in all kinds of wonderful activities? Would you like to go out at the end of your life with a life filled with health and energy and vitality and fun, and rather than being in a hospital with all kinds of tubes in and out of your body? All right, but where are you now? That's the question. Are you there yet? Chances are you're not. So if you're not there, how will you get there? You need a plan. But more importantly, do you have a plan that was actually going to get you from where you are? How will you get there? With a plan that's proven to work, right? You need a plan that's proven to work. Do you have that? Chances are you don't, but I do. And I'm living proof. All right. So I was 55 pounds heavier, had high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and high blood sugar 26 years ago. And I had issues. And I didn't change my life until a friend of mine walked up to me and said, "Getting a little chubby there, Ruben." And I had a buttermilk donut in my hand. I wanted to throw it at him, but I didn't want to waste the donut. So I got mad at him first, but then I got mad at me. And then I realized I had done it to myself. So I realized that I could use what I already knew. You see, to know and not to use is not yet to know. So I had to start to apply what I'd already learned. So I started to do that. And as a result, I instituted the 4-point plan that I had already been using for many areas in my life already, as a collegiate athlete, as a basketball player. So number 1, we must begin from within. We must start here in our mindset, our thinking, our attitude, our consciousness and awareness. We've got to start here. If we don't shift our mindset, we're doomed to repeat the behavior over and over again, expecting different results. That's insanity. So we've got to be able to change that. So we need a proven strategy that's evidence-based. That's what I have to offer. And we need to be intelligent about setting ourselves up with support and accountability. I was having a conversation with Teresa before we got started about the importance of the tribal community. I mean, in ancient times, we had this tribal community that really supported each person. There are places on the face of the planet, they have no prisons, they have no jails. When somebody does something wrong, the entire community embraces them and they actually support them in changing their behavior and their lifestyle. That's what we need to do today. And then fourth, we need to have a track record of consistency that leads to these developments of habits, because habits produce results. This is no mystery. This is a no nonsense approach either. And it's going to take work. I'm not going to kid you about it. So what I offer, some of the things that I offer, I do one-on-one consultations for people. So this is to help you set up with a plan, to figure out a plan, personalized plan just for you. In addition, I do one-on-one coaching for people too. So I have several clients. I have one of my clients, I've been working with him for years. He just recently got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. So he called me back up. So we're working on his health right now. So it's really powerful what I'm able to do with him. So I do one-on-one coaching. I also have a group program. So I have an Evolving Health 12-week lifestyle medicine immersion program. It's fabulous. We cover all kinds of great things. And it's a 12-week program after 2 complete weekends of intense information. And it's wonderful. People produce miracles in this program, and you create a community. That's what I love about this program. We're able to do that. And then, so I cover a lot of material over the course of those 2 weekends. It's virtual now because we're going to be this way probably this year until the end of next year, this next coming year. Here's one of my graduates. This is Donna. She's a retired nurse, and she had been plant-based for 8 years by 2018. She struggled with her health with several issues, but then she came into my program. We started to make some tweaks and adjustments to her health, including one of the things she got her fat grams down to 20 grams a day or less. And so look what happened, 70 pounds lighter. And today she still looks this way. She's vibrant, she's healthy, she's walking every day. She's amazing. And she will tell you firsthand that she is living her best life today. So she's really doing great. If I also do work with organizations. So I do my lifestyle medicine immersion program in the workplace. I'm actually on the committee for the American College of Lifestyle Medicine for lifestyle medicine in the workplace. So I do a program for employers and their employees, and it's fabulous. So, and I've got all kinds of information. This is my contact information. I'll send you all the information in the email. You'll get that. So now I'm going to go to the chat window so I can answer some of these questions that have come up. Let's see. Let me come back. Let's see. Tea. All right. So here's what I recommend for tea. Question about tea. So the best tea are the herbal teas, but there's some really great teas. One of the best teas, hibiscus tea, is really great. We've shown the research on that. Another tea that is really good is the Rooibos Red African Tea. It's also excellent. It has all the antioxidant properties of green tea, but no caffeine whatsoever. So there's some healthy teas that are really great. All right, let's see. Has my son... Oh, my son's cholesterol level went down to 120. All right, total cholesterol down to 120. LDL went down to like, I think 67. So really great. All right, let's see. Oats are especially valuable. Question about oats. Oats are fabulous. I have my steel cut oatmeal almost every single morning. It's fantastic. They're wonderful to have. Really great. So flax seeds, what we know, we don't know everything about flax seeds. So here's how whole food works. So really great question, George. So the way that whole food works is that, and Dr. T. Colin Campbell says this really well, you can't analyze just one aspect of that food because there's so many dimensions to what's going on. So yes, it has omega-3, but there's many more things. So don't try to think, and this is the error that we make because the medical model you and I learned is to look at the extract of one ingredient. So one cause for one effect, but that's the medical model. So in the holistic model, in the holistic approach and lifestyle medicine approach, we don't know every aspect of it, but we know it works. We know it works, and we've done the controlled study, so it's really great. So it's wonderful. Other questions? Anybody, anything at all? Any questions at all? Fire away. Unmute yourself. I think I've answered everything that's on the chat window. I think I've covered it all. I'm going to answer any other questions that anybody else has. Anything at all? Give you a second to unmute yourself.
Were you just talking about chia seed?
No, I was talking about flaxseed.
Okay. So what about chia seed?
What about chia seeds? I know.
Is it any different from the flaxseed? Because I usually mix them both.
Okay.
And grind them at the same time.
Yeah, I don't recall research on the chia seeds compared to flax seeds. I don't recall seeing any of that, but my understanding that they're fairly equivalent. So go ahead. What you're doing is perfectly fine.
I know a lot of people who eliminate red meat and think that the other meats are just fine. It is true that they have less saturated fat. And so I'm not sure what to focus their attention on to get them to understand that it's still a problem.
Very good, Stu. Very good. Well, actually, the highest saturated fat is with chicken. It's not with the red meats. So it's really interesting because most people think, they deceivingly think that, oh, I'm not going to have the red meat because of the saturated fat, but then they end up piling up much more chicken. They think, oh, it's a white meat, it's not less saturated fat, it's healthier. And that's not the case. So there's a lot of research studies around this. There's so much that we see. There was research that was done by the World Health Organization back in 2015 showing that all processed meats are a class 1 carcinogen, but then they showed all the other red meats are a class 2 carcinogen, that they probably cause cancer, whereas the class 1 absolutely causes cancer. And there's been research since then that even all the poultry and the fish also contributes to cancer as well. So there's a lot of research that's out there, and it doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up anymore. It really doesn't. So I hope that helps you with that, Stu. But there's a lot of research. We can go down that rabbit hole. There's a lot more stuff there. Who else? Who else? Other questions?
How can you kick a salt addiction? Salt
addiction.
Yes.
Well, it gets to be an addiction, and it really does. So you really have to start to, any addiction, you have to kind of treat it from understanding that there's two major aspects to any addiction. There's the physical nature of it, and there's also the psychological dimension of it as well. Mm-hmm. So there are two parts to every addiction. So both of these need to be addressed. So one of the things that you can look at, and one of the things that I teach in my Evolving Health program, is the nature of habits. Because one of the things that happens is that we develop bad habits, and then we get a reinforcement to continue the bad habit, because there is a psychological and a physical reward. So we get this reward, and sometimes it's flavor, sometimes it's something else, okay, whatever the case may be. But there's a reward, and then what happens is that the reward leads our brain to saying, get more, right? And so then it becomes this vicious cycle. It continues to do that. So what we have to do is really learn to understand how to break a bad habit. And it's one of the things that there's a lot more to this that I will explain to you later on. But the thing is, I recommend a book called The Power of Habit. The Power of Habit. Excellent book. Charles Duhigg is the author. Excellent book, because it really is delving into understanding bad habits. And there's another one. Oh, I can't remember his name right off the bat. He was a speaker in my lifestyle medicine conference just a few weeks ago. And he was fabulous, just absolutely fabulous. He's a physician who really talks about habits as well. And he has a TED Talk. I'll write this down. right now. I'm going to include that in the follow-up email because he's in my, oh, wait a minute. I got my notes right here. Oh, yeah. So here are my notes. I know exactly where to look. And Dr. Judd Brewer, MD, PhD, fabulous, brilliant, funny, really great. And so he talks about being able to break bad habits, craving to quit, eat right now, unwinding anxiety. He's got apps on this and everything else. So you need a structure in place. So to be able to create any healthy habit, you need a structure in place. To break a bad habit, you need a structure in place as well. So that's one of the things that really helps. So one of the things that I teach people is to actually track their habits. So one of my clients, one of my students, Anne can speak to this, is to track how many times you get triggered, okay, by something that triggers you. And then when do you actually practice the bad habit and when do you choose not to practice the bad habit? And you respond instead of react. All right, so you have to track it. And it's called the Hawthorne effect. And so what happens is that when you actually track something that's unhealthy that you want to stop doing, you track it and you consciously become aware of it, you're looking to become improved in your numbers. And that helps too. So there's a lot more to think. I just gave you the tip of the iceberg. Okay, other questions? Anything at all? Anything else? Nothing else in the chat window. Okay, all right.
Well, with salt though, with time, I think you can, it's like with anything, you get used to not having it, and you choose to use more herbs and spices and garlic and things that you train your taste buds to love other things.
I couldn't agree more. I totally agree, because a lot of people, they want flavor in their food. So they just, the first thing, the only thing they add is salt. I have friends that
I think
they don't even know what it tastes like yet. They just have the salt before they even eat it.
I have a friend like that. He starts salting and he hasn't even bacon.
Yeah, I haven't even tasted it yet. So the thing is, that's a conditioned response. Yeah. All right. So the thing about it is that you can start to learn to use other spices. I absolutely agree. I mean, these days, my spice rack, I have a whole cupboard full of spices.
Right.
Full of it. I mean, red chili pepper, onion, garlic, cumin. I mean, the list goes on. It's wonderful. And you learn. You're absolutely right, Cindy. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Who else? Anything else? Anybody? Anything at all?
And then things are too salty.
No, they're just maybe a little hot.
No, like sometimes you can eat something that you haven't made and it's too salty.
Yeah, right. You will notice that after a while. It takes usually about 2 weeks for your taste buds to change. So you have to be patient with that. Okay, really great. Anyone else?
It was good. Thank you.
Anybody?
You did
Somebody
great.
was connecting with audio. All right, really great. So last thing, I just want to ask you all. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you. Thank you for being here with me. I appreciate it. It really means a lot to me that I'm able to share this with you. And then second thing, I have a request. My request is that you share this information. Please share it widely. Share it with your friends. Share it with your family members. Look, Christmas Eve is right around the corner. And it's the day with the highest number of heart attacks in the United States. All right, it's a huge jump in heart attacks. You could save somebody's life by sharing this information. So I'm going to process this information. I'm going to send you the email as quickly as I can. All right, I'll get it to you either by tonight or tomorrow. So please share this with people. Thank you for being here. Next Sunday, I'm going to be talking about Alzheimer's. That's a great presentation as well, because people are facing that. We have more people with elderly parents. We have more people that are caregivers than ever before. We have more people that are worried about it because they've had people in their family actually die or they're dealing with it. So please attend and share the word, spread it. I'd like to see 1,000 people on this webinar on Sundays. All right. So that's my goal, is to have 1,000 people and then have it go like crazy. All right. So thank you. Have a fabulous, wonderful Christmas, Hanukkah, or whatever you celebrate, Kwanzaa, anything. All right. So have a fabulous holiday and hope to see you next Sunday. Goodbye.
Bye. Thank you.
You're welcome.